Chapter 68. Max. No one was looking at anything but her. Even I struggled to tear my eyes away. I had never seen her like this before. It was incredible, the way she summoned their attention and refused to let it stray. Tisaanah unleashed spectacle after spectacle, body writhing, feet bare against the smooth stone floor, a smear of colour in a world of white. "Now," I whispered to Noura, who nodded. Slowly, we fell to the outskirts of the ballroom. Easy. No one so much as glanced at us. They were all too enraptured by her. I pressed myself against the doorframe and kept one eye on Tisaanah as I watched Eslin and Ariadne inch along the back of the room and out the door. In the back hallway of the servants' entrance, slaves were lined up against the opposite wall. As planned, the two Sirisan began to take hold of slaves one by one and flicker away into nothingness. There were wards surrounding the Myko's city that prevented the use of stratogram travel, basic security after all. But the Sirisan moved through layers of magic much deeper than stratograms, making Eslin and Ariadne two of very, very few people in the entire world who were capable of slipping those locks. Now, they were silently taking slaves and depositing them at a rendezvous point outside the city gates, all while the most powerful people in Thrall stood mere feet away, utterly entranced by Tisaanah's performance. The perfect distraction. Unease still stirred in my stomach, leaving me slightly dizzy. But I'd be honest, I didn't think we could get this far. I watched Tisaanah unleash wave upon wave of translucent butterflies climbing onto Arzine's table as the room grew darker and darker, eliciting gasps from the audience. If I hadn't been so nervous that she would get killed at any moment, I would have laughed at her exaggerated dramatics, but then there were no surprise. Tisaanah never did anything halfway, and if she was going to create a distraction, she was going to create the most distracting distraction ever to distract. In the servants' hallway, slave after slave disappeared. Ascended above, I thought. This might actually work. I found the guard boy across the room who had taken our weapons, made eye contact, preparing for the signal. Any minute now.
Chapter 69. Tisaanah. I was drunk. Drunk on the glass of wine that I had gulped down, yes, but also drunk on the attention of the crowd. A buzzing headache throbbed behind my temples, but I didn't have to fake my grin as I rolled off of Azine's table and twirled to the center of the room. "And what of these?" I said, gesturing to my scars. "Do you know how I got them?" I didn't dare chance even a glance at the servants' door, or what happened beyond it. But I did catch Max's eye just once. I loved the way he looked at me. Reche's delight had begun to sour, hissing and spitting like a cat at the back of my skull. Still, it ignored me, refusing to speak. That was fine. I was doing quite well without it. I smiled at Azine even though my headache spiked. "Your father gave them to me, the night that I killed him." Azine's one visible eye widened. A shocked wave of whispers rippled through the crowd. I didn't stop dancing, basking in the scale of what I had just said. Azine leapt to his feet, his furious recognition rolling over me all at once. Oddly enough, it didn't hit me quite as hard as I would have expected it to, considering the fierceness of his reaction. "A mere slave whore could not have killed Ismaris Mikov," he snarled. A slave whore did indeed. I scanned the room, watching the other lords and ladies whisper furiously to each other. Odd that I didn't taste their reaction in the air, but I could see it, the scale of their surprise and their judgment. Azine Mikov, I knew, did not want to remember me, even if he could. Voss had already told me that Azine had all of the information he needed to at least suspect that I was responsible. But it did not help Azine politically to punish some faceless, nameless slave. No. Azine needed power. He needed respect. And in the world of the Threllian lords, respect was earned through honor and dominance. "Liar!" Azine hissed. "Which one of us is the liar?" I stopped at his table, blinking sweetly up at him. many wars did you use your father's death to justify? How many lords did you kill in his name? If I had not been so transfixed on the delicious rage on Azeen's face, I might have noticed that the room was beginning to brighten again. I might have noticed that, beneath the pounding of my headache, Reshe had gone silent. I might have noticed that I couldn't hear or feel the rippling emotions of the party guests. Instead, I watched Azeen's lips curl into a sneer. "Fragmented cunt!" he spat, sending flecks of spittle across my face as he bore down on me. "I knew the orders were threatened by me, but I thought more highly of them than to send some wench to topple the most powerful family in Threll." And then, as that sneer split into a terrible, cold smile, I noticed. I saw his hand raise, and in the split second before he brought it down, I tried to shoot a gust of air at him to push him back. I tried, and nothing happened. His hand collided with my face with such force that I went careening to the ground. But I didn't think about the pain. I only thought about one terrible realization as my blurred vision settled on the broken remains of my empty wineglass. The world had gone dull, like half of my senses had been cut off. I had no magic. Chapter 70. Tisaanah. When I heard that a group of Order wielders would be coming here, well, of course I had to take my precautions, considering that the Orders had been quite uncooperative in offering their assistance. I let out one steady, long breath as I pushed myself up from the ground. Azeen paced circles around me. His voice was too loud, too confident. He was showboating. "But this is more than I expected. A spy and a seductress come to turn my allies against me. Or my stolen property returned to me. Get up." His fingernails bit into my skin as he yanked me to my feet. I was so dizzy I could hardly steady myself, but I straightened my back through sheer force of will. For the second time in my life, I saw my plans topple before me. What was I going to do? My eyes found the slaves gathered at the edge of the room, looking on in veiled horror. The expression on Cyril's face cut a dagger through my guts. I couldn't bring myself to meet their gazes. Instead, I looked only to Azeen, meeting that one dark, hateful eye with equal intensity. He smiled at me, an ugly, joyless movement. "I do remember you now. You and your beautiful dances. Why don't you perform for us, whore?" Whore. I hated him. Hated that word. Hated the anonymity of it all. "My name is Tisaanah." "Your name is whatever I want it to be." Commotion drew my gaze at the other end of the ballroom, and my chest seized as I saw the fight break out. Guards trying to capture my companions. Glimpses of blood. No, I would not let this happen. It would not end like this. "Think, Tisaanah." A vicious impact struck my face, and my body once again collided with the stone ground. And another one. A kick to my stomach that sent me curling in on myself. Something stirred weakly at the back of my mind. "Get up." I did, even though my body screamed. I didn't let it show. As soon as I hit my feet, he struck me again. Pain bloomed through my skull, but I straightened as if it were nothing, locking empty eyes back on Azeen. Uneasy whispers ran through the crowd. How unseemly, they were muttering. How uncouth. My vision swam, and it was a struggle not to laugh. Two-faced hypocrites. Azeen had always lacked restraint, and that was his greatest crime. Not beating me, but that he did it out here, in front of them. They were too civilized for such things. They beat their slaves in private. They raped behind closed doors. "Perform," Azeen commanded. "No." Another stirring in the back of my mind, gone before I could understand what it was. He grabbed my arm, fingernails digging into my skin, eye bearing into mine. "Do you think the Orders can protect you? Do you think they make you any less of a slave?" Do you think their power is greater than mine? Clearly that is not true. He gestured to the door. I have taken your companions, including the second of the orders, captive quite easily. There it was again, the performance. We were all just pieces to illustrate his dominance to all these people he so desperately wanted to impress. I bit the inside of my lip so hard that blood flooded over my tongue. I didn't look, even though he clearly wanted me to. I looked only at him, and I hated him. I hated all of them. You try so hard to fill your father's name, I spat. But everyone in this room knows that you never will. Another strike to my face before the words were even out of my mouth. I hit him right on that nerve, just as I had intended. You forgot your place, he snarled, but I will remind you. You forgot what you are, Esmaris had said to me. I smiled a serene, bloody grin. If you want to kill me, then kill me. Azeen's one exposed eye glinted with an anger that rivaled my own. His fingers tightened around my arm. Fine, he spat. I'll finish what my father started. And dragged me through the parting crowd, to the entrance of the ballroom, down a white hallway that was all too familiar.
Chapter 71. Max. I realized too late. I'd been dosed with Crixalis before. The headache, the numb, tingling sensation at my fingertips. I'd barely touched that wine. The dose had been powerful, perhaps even coated on the outside of the glass. Not that the details mattered now. I snapped my fingers and yanked forth only the tiniest of sparks. No. I spun around just in time to see Eslin flicker away, slowly, too slowly, before I could stop her. Ariadne grabbed for her a split second too late, making the same horrifying realization that I did. She could have been caught between dimensions if her magic failed her before she and the boy she carried could emerge. I saw Ardzine strike Tisaanah, heard her hit the floor, and my vision went red. Weapon! I whirled to the guard boy we had met earlier, my hand outstretched. Now! He wouldn't understand my words, but he clearly understood my tone. I only glimpsed him dive for the corner of the room before my attention was yanked away by the telltale whoosh of a raised blade. I evaded just in time, but half a dozen guards were upon us like flies to carrion. Where I dodged one, I nearly ran into another, and the effects of the Crixalis seeped far beyond the surface, stripping my wits and my reflexes from me just as it stripped my flames. I caught a wrist swinging towards Samarin's head, twisted until I felt a crack, prying the sword from the guard's limp fingers. In that moment, I'd never loved my brother more for every miserable night he spent running me through drills on far too little sleep all those years ago, no magic allowed. But even that could only get me so far. Bodies closed in on me, more and more. I slashed, I jabbed, I evaded, until blood spattered across my face. But it wasn't enough. There were always more. Through them, I caught a glimpse of Tisaanah pushing herself up from the ground. Ardzine standing over her. A weak, pitiful cry rang out as the slave boy who had helped us fell to his knees, his throat slashed before he could reach our weapons. A blunt impact struck the back of my head, but I surged forward, fighting arms and weapons and hands that tried to drag me back. The forms closed in, blocking Tisaanah from view as she was struck again. Beside me, I heard Samarin let out a muffled grunt, the one sound that yanked me from my focus. I spun around to see him double over, clutching his side as one of Arzine's soldiers held a bloody blade. Fuck, that left knee. I should have been watching. In that moment of distraction, another pair of hands grabbed me, and another blow struck my head. I tasted blood. The last thing I saw through blurring vision was Tisaanah being dragged from the room. And the last thing I thought was that I was going to kill every last one of them.
Chapter 72. Tisaanah. Esmaris's office looked exactly as it did the day that he almost killed me. When Azeen threw the door open and yanked me inside, for one split second I could have sworn I saw Esmaris's unmistakable form in front of the window, shoulders square, hands clasped behind his back. I hesitate to say that you and I have anything in common, but it seems that we do both love putting on a performance. He sent me hurling against the desk. I stopped myself from falling with my palms. Gods, I was so dizzy. I thought it would stop, but it was like my consciousness just kept draining and draining. I turned and straightened, even though it took all of my strength. At least we were alone. I had killed one Mikov in this room. I could kill another. What is it that you want? I asked. Time. I just needed time. The orders can give you funding if you wish. I don't need your money. I don't need your money. Crack. There it was again. A faint lurch at the back of my thoughts. This time it was pronounced enough that I understood what it was, and my heart leapt. Reshe, I whispered, but received no response. But if it was still there, I could draw it out. I could force it out. Influence, I said to Azine. You said you had requested the assistance of the Orders. They will give it to you in exchange for our release. Your release? I have the second to the Arch-Commandant locked up. I already have influence. Besides, slaves do not get to drive bargains. He grabbed my chin, fingers pinching my face as he turned it, examining me. I do remember you. You were his favorite. I didn't understand why even then. You look like a piebald cow. And yet, he protected you over me. He released my face, only to grab my shoulder and spin me around. My skin crawled as his hands raked down my back, lingering over my scars. But he rendered you useless with these ugly things. A plan unfurled in my mind. But in the end, he couldn't kill me. Azine was so easy to bait. He struck me again, sending my face slamming against the desk. As I pushed myself up, I imagined what his life would feel like withering beneath my hands, just like his father's had. My eyes bore into the desk, that white desk, and I threw myself into my fear, into my anger, until it consumed me. Reshe, I whispered again. I felt it move, prodded by my anger and pain. You aren't the only one with a penchant for the poetic, he spat. For one moment, my eyes lifted out to the window, looking out over the stepped marble of the Mikov's beautiful city, blocks of silver and shadow bathed in moonlight. I listened to Azine's footfalls cross the room, open a closet that I knew very well. I wondered if my old clothes still hung there. Do it, I dared him as his steps returned to me, as the whip sliced through the air with a lethal whistle and lit agony across my back. Crack! I forced my eyes open. I forced them to stare at that gleaming desk, filling my vision with white. Nothing but white and white for so many days. Reshe had wept. I forced my face into everything that terrified it. Crack! Nothing but white and pain. I thought of Esmaris, of his cold hatred, at the way it had struck betrayal into my chest. I flooded my thoughts with the agony of it. Reshe! Stop! Its pain twined with my own, distant, faint. The magic inherent in my blood was rendered useless, perhaps, but Reshe was magic. Maybe it pulled from something deeper. And I would not allow Azine Mikov to destroy me or the people I cared for. I didn't have time to be afraid of the monster I'd have to summon to do it. Crack! Warmth spilled down my back. Stop! If you want it to stop, then make it stop. Heat flooded my veins. I began to taste Azine's rapid fury, putrid and metallic. A frenzied smile spread across my lips. Crack! I felt Reshe roar to the front of my thoughts, lighting up the threads of my mind with power that stole the air from my lungs. The world snapped back into focus. I felt Azine's aura solidify. The moment I did, I grabbed onto it with razored claws. I spun around just in time to see him with his arm frozen. The anger that pinched his face shifted to confusion, then fear. The last time I stood here in this room, With a man's life in the palm of my hand, I had been terrified of what I had done. Not this time. I drew the fingers of my magic around his mind and squeezed. He dropped to his knees. A wave crested inside of me. Blood rushed through my ears as I bent over and grasped his face with one hand. His flesh withered around my fingers, spiders of black decay crawling over his cheeks. I brought my face so close to his that the smells of his wine-sweetened breath and putrid rot mingled in my nostrils. "Teles Maris, I sent you," I whispered, and drew the fingers of my magic and of my hand together until both his mind and his rotting jaw were crushed to jelly in my hands. The wave broke, and Reshe screamed a terrible, wordless screech as it drowned me.